the latest in the world of mixed martial arts. Hope everyone's doing well on this Thursday morning. I'm going to be breaking down tomorrow evening's Bellator 243 event on today's podcast, as well as recap Dana White's Contender Series 27. There's also some news, fight announcements, and a bunch of other stuff to get to. So I'll get right into that. But of course, I want to plug Tuesday's podcast where myself and Cole Shelton broke down the entire UFC on ESPN Plus 32 Lewis versus Oleinik card. So definitely check that out if you guys want to hear my picks for that card on Saturday. Now, I should say that I'm doing the podcast today on Thursday. I've been usually doing them Friday, but with Bellator tomorrow, I'd rather do it today. Get the preview out of the way early. So if there's some weight mishaps tomorrow at the UFC card, unfortunately, I won't be able to talk about that on the podcast, but definitely check my Twitter out at MMAdammartin to keep all the latest updates in anything MMA related. Okay, so let's start with Contender Series 27. That took place on Tuesday night. First event of this season of Contender Series. Pretty solid card, I guess, for a four-fight event. It is what it is. I mean, this isn't a UFC card, and then people, I think, kind of get that confused sometimes. It's not UFC, it's Contender Series. So the quality of the fights, the quality of the fighters, it's not the same level of the UFC, but it's still pretty close. There's some good fighters, man, and there's a couple prospects, obviously, the UFC signed. So 4 fights, 1 fight fell off. You got to feel bad for Kenny Cross, man. I don't know, what they're going to do with this guy. Lorisenko said that they're going to try finding him another fight later in the season, but that kind of seems unfair to me. It's not his fault the other guy was not medically cleared. I'd rather see Kenny Cross just get a UFC fight. They're signing a lot of people these days that, quite frankly, aren't necessarily UFC quality. So I don't think this guy is really, if they sign him, I don't think it's a bad mistake by any means. So I'd rather see him get a fight in the UFC. I don't know if they paid him. Hopefully they did pay him. I think that Contender Series guys get like $5,000. So just wanted to mention that because I do feel bad for that dude to lose his fight the last second. All right, so let's get into the fights. We'll start with the first one on card, and that was Jordan Leavitt defeating Luke Flores via first-round submission arm triangle choke. Flores has 2 losses in his career, both by arm triangle, both in the Contender Series. The other one to Matt Frevola. Man, Leavitt looked good, and he got signed to a deal. I think that's definitely the right call here. This guy has got a good ground game, man. 7-0 now, 25 years old, syndicate MMA guy. Very talented fighter on the ground, no doubt about it. I'm not going to lie, I wasn't totally sold on this guy coming in. Like, you look at his record, his level of opposition is pretty low, but he looked good in this fight, and that's his 3rd win in 2020 alone. So a solid win for this guy, and hopefully they can get him a quick fight here, a quick turnaround, maybe in September or October. They obviously need fighters to fight, both in Vegas and on Fight Island, and I think that Leavitt's the perfect guy. So, he's probably one of these guys that is going to have to take a fight on short notice in the next coming couple months, and I think he'll do pretty decently in the UFC. I mean, I'd like to see more of his striking, obviously. We didn't get to see that here, but as far as his ground game goes, it's solid, man. And for Flores, I mean, I don't know what he was thinking. He kind of almost wanted to go to the ground with this guy. That's a mistake. So, Flores 9-2 now. I don't see him getting another shot in the UFC anytime soon. Well, or even a chance to get in the UFC. Even on short notice, I don't think this guy's UFC caliber fighter, honestly. Next up, we had Jerome Rivera defeats Luis Rodriguez via unanimous decision. Now, this was weird. First off, pretty good fight, actually. 2 flyweights, and they're both talented guys. No doubt about it. Dana White said after the card that he could see them both in the UFC one day, and I could see that as well. Especially Rodriguez, I think. This guy is definitely a good prospect, man. He's young. He's only, I think he's 21, they said. He's pretty young, and quite frankly, I thought he won this fight. I think this was a really bad decision on the judges' scorecards. Dana White also thought so. I think most fans and media on Twitter were really shocked when Rivera was announced as the winner. If you go by the strike stats, I think he did edge it out, but if you watch the fight, there's no way he won this fight. That's why I don't trust stats all the time. Like, if you watch this fight, how did you not score for Rodriguez? It's very strange to me. Somehow, too, the judges had it 30-27 Rivera. Now, I will say this, Lorisenko, I think she's great at her job. I think she's awesome. I like Laura a lot. I think everyone likes Laura. She's really good. She's very polished, and obviously the UFC loves her, and I can see why. But I didn't like the way she announced the scorecard. She announced them backwards. Why would you do that? That just confused all the viewers. Everyone watching this, when she said 27-30, 27-30, 28-29, people were confused as hell. I think a lot of people thought the judges actually scored the fight for the wrong guy, or she read the scorecards wrong. Ultimately, she read them backwards. The scorecards were correct. Maybe she was just shocked as much as us that she thought that Rodriguez won too. I'm not sure, but I really like Laura. I just hope that in the future she doesn't do that again. Because as a viewer, when the ring announcer reads the scorecards backward, it's usually for the loser. It was very weird when she read it for the winner. Very strange. As far as the fight stuff goes, like I said, fun fight. And I could see these guys both in UFC. I thought Rodriguez got robbed, though. And, yeah, I mean, I don't understand how two judges had 30-27 Rivera. That is mind-blowing. Scary almost. Very scary. But, yeah, Rodriguez won this fight. Neither guy got signed, but I think in the future they could both be getting in on short notice or something. Next up, we had Euros Medic defeat Mikey Gonzalez via first round TKO. I mean, this guy is an absolute prospect, man. He is really good. You can tell. Like this guy's story, man. Great post-fight interview, too. How do you not like this kid? You know, he came from Serbia. He lives in Alaska. He trains in Alaska. He fights there. And when you look at his record, he's fighting guys that are really bad from Alaska FC. And Alaska FC generally has not produced much talent. The one guy they obviously produced is Jared Cannonier. But other than that, there's not a lot that's come out of there. So this guy looks like he could buck the trend, man. He looked incredible in this fight. And I know but Mikey Gonzalez is not like a household name. He's more of like a gatekeeper type. But still, the way that Euros Medic beat him down, especially to the body, like that kick that hurt Gonzalez that ultimately led to the finish was absolutely devastating. And the punches that Medic was throwing on the ground, right to the liver, nasty, nasty ground and pound. Like, I was super impressed. Dana White loved the kid. He obviously gave him a deal. I think this guy will get a fight very soon. I would say in the next month or so, they'll probably throw him in the cage again somewhere in Vegas or one of these cards. Don't know who he'd fight. Obviously, someone probably of the same caliber. I mean, I doubt they'll do Levitt versus a Medic. They could because they're both lightweights on this card, but they'll probably set them up on different paths, which is fine. But, yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing Medic compete, man. This guy is a solid prospect. And again, not only did he perform well in the cage, I thought his post-fight interview was great, and the emotion he showed, gotta love to see it, man, really. Like, it's a great story, and this kid looks phenomenal. It's hard to take away too much from the Contender Series fights because a lot of the opposition on these cards is guys like Mikey Gonzalez, who's a regional level gatekeeper, but the way that Medic went through him was super impressive. So I can't wait to see this guy fight again. And finally, the main event of the evening, Dustin Jacoby defeats Tai Flores via unanimous decision. This was a pretty fun fight. Dustin Jacoby, I mean, his striking, his technical striking is really fun to watch. He's a very exciting guy, as we all know. Tai Flores, though, my God, what a chin. What a chin in this dude. Super tough, super durable. Don't know how he survived the full 3 rounds. Second round definitely should have been stopped, in my opinion, by Herb Dean. I mean, Jacoby was just teeing off on this dude. But Flores did go the full 50 minutes, and 2 of the judges somehow scored the 3rd round for him. I don't agree with that at all. I had the scorecards 30-25 for Jacoby, so I had 10-8, 10-8, 10-9. The judges had it, I guess, 10-8, 10-9, and then 9-10 for Flores, or 10-9 for Flores, so 9-10 Jacoby. Kind of weird scorecard. I don't agree with Flores getting a scorecard, but the guy's tough as nails. I think he'll get another shot on Contender Series. Dana White loves guys like this. They're just really durable, so he'll get another fight on Contender Series. But as far as Jacoby goes, Dana White admitted that he was kind of on the fence as to signing him. But as soon as the fight was over, I was like, they got to sign this guy because most other opponents would have been finished early in that fight. It's just not his fault that Flores is super durable. Jacoby was trying to finish the entire 50 minutes, man. I was impressed by his performance. I think this guy is definitely a talented guy as far as the striking goes. A fight like Dustin Jacoby versus Johnny Walker, who wouldn't want to watch that fight? That's a fun fight to watch. Do I expect him to fight for the belt? Never. I don't think he'll fight for the belt. But I think there's exciting, fun fights for him to compete in. You know, Nikita Krylov, guys like that. There's a lot of fun fights for Dustin Jacoby in the UFC, and I'm excited to see him fight in the UFC. Okay, so that's it for Contender Series. Overall, I mean, pretty solid card. Only 4 fights, obviously, but hopefully next week we'll be back with a full 5. Hopefully nothing falls off. Let's go to Bellator 243 now. So Bellator 243 takes place tomorrow at Mohegan Sun in Uncasville. And overall, I mean, there's some fun fights for sure. It's not a huge card by any means. Overall, there is 10 fights in the card, so 6 prelims and 4 main card fights. You know, just going through the prelims really quick here. I'll just list them. There's no odds up for them, so I'm not going to break them down. But, you know, looking at them, we got Adam Borge taking on Mike Hamill. Borge obviously is a really talented prospect, and he did lose his last fight to Darian Caldwell, but before that had beaten Pat Curran and Aaron Pico. Back-to-back fights. I think a lot of us think of this guy as a future featherweight title contender in Bellator, so he's solid, man. And the guy he's taking on here, Mike Hamill, I don't know a ton about him. He's 7-3. He is a LFA guy. This is his Bellator debut, but you know, he's lost 3 of his last 5 fights, and that definitely is not boding well for his debut here against Adam Boric, who is an absolute unit. So got to go with Boric here. Odds might drop for this fight. Boric is a pretty well-known fighter. Maybe we'll get odds, but either way, I do like Adam Boric to win that fight. Next up, we got Weili Zhang against Tara Graf. Weili Zhang, pretty, I guess, talented prospect. I mean, she's 2-0. A lot of people talk more about her looks, I guess, than her fighting ability. I mean, she's obviously a very attractive woman, no doubt about it. But I'd like to see a little bit more from her in the cage. She hasn't fought in over a year now. Definitely a marketable fighter. I mean, we all know that, but we got to see some more from her before we start calling her like a future contender or something like that. Takes on Tara Graf here, 1-1, 34 years old, a lot older. The Ray is only 22, and this girl's coming off a knockout loss. She hasn't fought in 2 years. I mean, we all know what Bellator is doing here. Should be an easy win for Weili Zhang. Next up, we got Grant Neal against Khamzat Chimaev. Don't know a lot about these guys either. Grant Neal, 3-0. He has fought twice in Bellator, won both his fights in Bellator. And as far as Khamzat Chimaev goes, 5-2 record, and he's won 3 straight fights. This is his Bellator debut as well. I mean, I can't really break this one down too much. Don't know a lot about the guys. No odds for this one, but I guess maybe Neal with the undefeated record would be favored. Next up, we have Dalton Rosta against Mark Gardner. Right now, Rosta, he's a 2-0 fighter, so again, not a lot of experience. Both his fights coming in Bellator, and Gardner, he is 1-1 in his career, and he's coming off a TKO loss in his last fight a year and a half ago. It seems like another fight where Bellator is trying to get this guy Rosta a win here. Next up, Nana Dung against Charlie Campbell. Dung is 3-1, 21 years old, young guy. I remember him from the last Hawaii card. He lost to Zach Zane, a former Contender Series guy. So he's got 3 fights in Bellator now, usually on the Hawaiian cards. And Charlie Campbell, 1-1. And he's coming off a loss in Ring of Combat over like about a year ago, actually. So I don't know. I guess Dung would probably be favored if there was odds. And finally, the last prelim, AJ Agazarm against Chris Lencioni. This should be a pretty fun fight. 2 guys that definitely can grapple. So AJ Agazarm, 3-1. He hasn't been like overly impressive in Bellator. He's had a couple of submission wins now, but still some of the fights he's had weren't super impressive. But we all know the guy definitely has good jiu-jitsu. And Chris Lencioni here, 6-2 record. Another guy with a lot of really solid jiu-jitsu skills here. And he does have a little bit more experience here. So I don't know. It's a tough fight to call. I'm kind of leaning towards Lencioni just based on the experience. He's fought better competition, but definitely a close fight. Interesting matchup. A little surprised Bellator did that fight. As far as the main card goes, we actually do have odds for that, thankfully. So let's get into that right now. First fight on the main card, Myles Jury against Georgi Karakhanyan in a lightweight bout. I guess it's lightweight because it's on short notice, but usually these guys would be a featherweight. Right now we have Myles Jury as a -230 favorite and Georgi Karakhanyan, the insane one, +190. Myles Jury, 18-5 record, 31 years old. He's coming off a win in Bellator over Brandon Gertz. Previously had lost to Benson Henderson in his Bellator debut. We all know him from his UFC run. This guy is a talented fighter, as we all know. He's been around for a while now. Had some good wins in his UFC run. Michael Johnson, Diego Sanchez, Rick Glenn, some decent wins. Nothing amazing by any means, but definitely a talented guy that's always been a really high-level prospect. I think the UFC wanted him to be more of like a title contender, but never really got to that level. Still, I mean, Myles Jury is definitely a talented guy, well-rounded fighter. Georgi Karakhanyan, very experienced guy, 29-10-1, 35 years old, a little bit older now. He's been around forever. He's had 3 stints in Bellator. He's been up and down in Bellator. He has some good wins, though, in his career. I mean, no doubt about it. This guy has some solid wins. Lance Palmer, Bubba Jenkins, Daniel Pineda. Just looking through his earlier record in his career, I mean, he's been around forever. He fought in Bellator back in like 2010, back in their first season. So he's been around forever, man. I got a lot of respect for Georgie. But, I mean, the last few years, he's definitely been having a little bit more trouble picking up wins. So this is a tough one to call, I think. I mean, Jury obviously is favored. He's a lot younger. Not a lot younger. He's 4 years younger, but he's kind of fresher in fight years. He hasn't taken as much damage. But quite frankly, Myles Jury's a guy that I still feel like I want to see more from him. You know, even at this point of his career, I still feel like we can see more from him. Georgie's a guy that can finish fights. I feel like based on the odds, it could be a dog or pass situation. I wouldn't bet on this fight personally because I do think Georgie can win. But, you know, overall, Jury is the more well-rounded guy. He probably wins a decision here. I just think that Georgie has a better chance than the odds are indicating to maybe get a upset stoppage or something, maybe a submission or possibly a TKO. Who knows? We'll see what happens. Should be an interesting fight, though. There's a lot of former UFC guys in this card, which is kind of cool. Next up, we have Curtis Millender against Sabah Homasi in a welterweight bout. Right now, Curtis Millender is a big favorite, minus 355. Sabah Homasi, plus 295. You got to like Curtis Millender here, man. This is a really good matchup for him stylistically. Curtis Millender, 18-5, 32 years old. He's coming off a win over Moises Marietta in his Bellator debut. Not Bellator debut, sorry. It's his Bellator return. He's fought in Bellator 2 times before. It's actually his 3rd stint in the company. We know he had a stint in the UFC that, quite frankly, didn't deserve him being cut. He went 3-2. He beat Thiago Alves, Max Griffin, and Siar Bahadurzada before losing to Elizeu Zaleski dos Santos and Bilal Muhammad. That was a weird cut, man. I think a lot of us were really shocked when he was cut. I mean, you lost to 2 really good fighters and gets cut. That's pretty harsh. This is a guy who's talented, man. He's got a win over Kevin Holland from a couple years ago in LFA. He's a talented guy, man. He should be in the UFC. I don't agree with them cutting this guy. As far as Sabah Homasi goes, he's also a former UFC fighter. He's 13-8, 31 years old. He's been around a long time, too. He fought in Bellator Season 1 as well in 2010. He also fought in Strikeforce in 2010. He fought on the Strikeforce Miami card, which had a main event of Nick Diaz against Marius Aramskis. So he's been around a long time. That's the same card Robbie Lawler knocked out Melvin Manhoef in that crazy fight. So, this is a guy who's been around a long time, but he's not really a lead guy. I mean, we've seen him fight a lot now, and he gets finished quite a bit. In the UFC, he went 0-3 with 3 stoppage losses, got knocked out by Tim Means and then Abdulrazak Alassane twice. Exciting guy, don't get me wrong. He's coming off 2 straight wins in Bellator, including a nice knockout win over Micah Terrell. But overall, I mean, this is a guy that can be finished, and I don't like the matchup for him. I think Curtis Millender smokes this guy. I like Curtis Millender by knockout. Maybe a decision if he just kind of just wants to appoint him, but I think he's going to make a statement here and get a finish. Give me Curtis Millender by knockout over Sabah Homasi. He's the one guy I really like for a bet. I just wish the odds were better. Minus 355 sucks, but I think people obviously know that he has a really good chance to win this fight. Next up, co-main event, Matt Mitrione against Tim Johnson, 2 former UFC heavyweights. Matt Mitrione right now is a minus 130 favorite. Tim Johnson plus 110. 2 heavyweights that have been knocked out and can get knocked out. So definitely an interesting fight. I mean, it can go either way. It's a heavyweight fight between 2 guys with a lot of power in their fists, but they've shown throughout their careers that they can be connected on themselves. Matt Mitrione, I've always liked Matt Mitrione. He's a fun guy. He's 42 years old now, though, 13-7 record. We all know him from the Ultimate Fighter heavyweight season. And he went on to have a pretty solid career in the UFC. For a guy that didn't have any experience in MMA, he had a nice career, man. He has some good wins on his resume. Derek Lewis by knockout, Gabriel Gonzalez, Fedor Emelianenko in Bellator, Roy Nelson. So he's got good wins, man. And Matt Mitrione's a great athlete. Even though he's 42 now, I still feel like he's going to be a faster fighter in this fight against Tim Johnson, who's 35. And Tim Johnson, former UFC guy, 13-6 record. He's got some decent wins too. Shamil Abdurrahimov, Marcin Tybura, Daniel Milanchuk. In his last fight, he knocked out Terrell Fortune in a big upset. So Tim Johnson's not a guy to be messed with. This is a close fight. I mean, you can go either way. That's why the odds are this close. But, despite the age difference, I hate picking guys over 40. I got to go with Matt Mitrione, man. I still feel like this guy's going to be a lot faster in this fight, and the athleticism, I think, is going to be the difference. I kind of feel like he's going to be able to connect on Tim Johnson and put him out. So my pick's Matt Mitrione by knockout, but Tim Johnson's definitely a guy with a lot of power, and would it shock me if he pulled off the upset? Not really. That's why the odds are so close. Finally, main event of the evening. This should be a fun fight here. It's a rematch between Michael Chandler and Benson Henderson. Kind of wish it was 5 rounds. Bellator needs to change that, I think. They should go to 5-round main events. But these guys obviously did meet a couple years ago, 2016, in a lightweight title bout. Michael Chandler won a split decision in one of the better fights of 2016. Since then, Michael Chandler's 4-2. Overall, Michael Chandler, he's 34 years old. He's 20-5 in his career. He's a 3-time Bellator lightweight champion. And we all know about Michael Chandler. He's probably Bellator's, if it's either him or Patricio Pitbull, that's the best homegrown fighter ever. I think the fact Patricio knocked him out last year probably gives him a step up, but it's 1A and 1B as far as Bellator homegrown talent. And you got to love Michael Chandler, man. He's been around for a long time now, 10 years now. It's been 9 years since he submitted Eddie Alvarez in that upset. So he's been around a long time. He's got some good wins in his career. Like I said, Eddie Alvarez, he's beat Patricky Pitbull twice, Benson Henderson, Brent Primus, he avenged his loss there after the injury. His last fight against Sydney Outlaw, man, it was a really impressive knockout. So this is a guy that's still at the top of his game. I know he did get knocked out by Patricio Pitbull last year, but Pitbull is an absolute beast, and he's a guy that could do really well in the UFC. So I think Chandler too. He's actually a free agent after this fight, guys. So he's talked openly about testing the water. He could be in the UFC. I think he really needs to get a win here, obviously. A stoppage win would be great, but even a decision, if it's kind of like an impressive decision, I think that would get the UFC's interest for sure. Benson Henderson is not an easy guy to beat, though. 28-8 in his career, 36 years old now, a little bit older now, but a guy that's had a lot of success lately in Bellator. He's on a 4-fight win streak over Miles Jury, Adam Piccolotti, Sad Awad, and Roger Huerta. He did lose to Patricky Pitbull in his Bellator debut, or his second Bellator fight. He does a win over Patricio Pitbull by injury, and then obviously the loss to Chandler. So overall in Bellator, he's actually 5-2. So it's not bad. Actually 5-3, excuse me. He lost to Andre Koreshkov as well. But look at that level of competition, man. I mean, that is elite guys that he's lost to. So ever since he got signed to Bellator from the UFC, he's been in there with killers. And we all know how good Benson is. I mean, you look at his career, some of the wins he has. Masvidal, Habilov, Josh Thompson at the time was great. Gilbert Melendez at the time he beat him was elite. Nate Diaz, Frankie Edgar twice, Clay Guida, Jim Miller, Donald Cerrone twice. Benson Henderson's almost a legend, man. He's close to that legend status. He's solid, man. He really is. So right now we have the odds at Michael Chandler -235, Benson Henderson +195. It's definitely a closer fight than the odds are indicating. I am leaning towards Chandler again. I think he probably wins a decision here. But man, Benson's a solid fighter, and Chandler's kind of been a little bit inconsistent the last few years. So I wouldn't be surprised if Benson Henderson actually won this fight. But overall, I do lean towards Michael Chandler. I think he'll just be able to outpoint Benson. Striking's going to be a little bit crisper, throw a little bit more power, and maybe get some takedowns here and grind a decision out. But it's a close fight for sure, guys. An exciting fight. It should be a good one. And I think for sure if Chandler wins this fight, the UFC is going to talk to him about potentially coming over. And I think that's going to be a lot of fun because there's some good fights for him. So overall, I mean, it's not like the best card ever by any means, but for a card booked on a few weeks' notice, it's not bad. Got a comment here from Kenshiro about Valerie. Dude, we all love Valerie. I mean, she's great. I will say this. I saw her interview yesterday with the media, and she basically said she doesn't post her pictures and stuff for men or for her fans. She posts it for herself. That doesn't even make sense. I'm sorry. It doesn't make sense. I'd love for her just to own it and be like, yeah, I'm a sexy girl, so I post pictures of myself to get attention. I mean, why can't she just say that? I wish she would have said that. I would have respected the answer a little bit more than saying that the pictures are for herself. Really? You're posting pictures of you in bathing suits for yourself? I don't understand that at all. It's for her male fans. I mean, why? She should have said that. Everyone knows that's what it's for. And I don't have a problem with that, quite frankly. I know Macy Chiasson and her kind of got into it a few months ago. Dude, I mean, I don't see why a really attractive girl can't market herself like this. I don't see why, especially when, she's shown some promise in the cage. I think people are just worried that she's going to turn to like Paige Van Zandt, where that's the focus of her career and not the fighting part. But she can do what she wants, man. I just wish she'd own it. Like, why not just say, hey, yeah, I'm posting pictures because I want my fans to look at my Instagram and follow me. I mean, I don't see what's wrong with saying that. All right, let's get to some news here. First thing I got to mention here, Yair Rodriguez is injured. He fractured an ankle or something. He's out of his fight with Zabit Magomedsharipov. So UFC is actively looking for an opponent. That's the August 29th card. So right now, they don't have an opponent for Zabit, and it's hard to say who's going to step in. Calvin Kattar's offered to step in. I would like to see the fight, but it doesn't make sense if you're Zabit. He just beat Calvin Kattar in his last fight. He's on a 14-fight win streak. He should be next in line for the belt. Why would you take a step backwards and fight the same guy you just beat? It doesn't make sense. That fight for Calvin is a great matchup. He's just fought twice since then over Jeremy Stephens and Dan Ige. He got a ton of in-cage experience from those fights. In a rematch, I would actually lean towards Calvin Kattar in a 5-round fight. I would. Having said that, if you're Zabit, why would you take that fight? There's no way Ali's going to sign up for that fight. I saw a couple other guys like Charles Rosa, guys that aren't ranked, are asking for that fight. I don't think they get the fight either. I think at this point, you might just save Zabit for the title shot. Just give him the fight against Volkanovski. That's what he wants. I have no problem with that. He's on a 14-fight win streak. He's 6-0 in the UFC. I have no problem with him getting the title shot. I don't think he should have to beat Calvin Kattar again. That doesn't make sense to me. Again, it'd be a fun fight. 5 rounds, definitely different than a 3-round fight than what we saw the first time. But I think if you're Zabit, you're holding out for a different opponent or you're holding out for a title shot. If they can get Zombie in, that'd be the ideal fight. That's the perfect number one contender fight. Or if they can get Brian Ortega, that'd be okay too. Or Max Holloway. Max Holloway would be a really good fight as well. But Calvin Kattar, as much as I'd like to see it, and as much as I do think in the future he should get a rematch, not right now. He just beat him. It doesn't make sense. We had a few positive marijuana tests, which is so ridiculous. I mean, up here in Canada, like, you can walk to the store and buy weed. This is crazy, man, and it's legal here. And for these guys to test positive and possibly have, you know, their wins overturned and fined and suspended 9 months is nuts. So Tim Elliott, Luis Pena, and Jamahal Hill, all three of them tested positive for marijuana. And right now, all three guys are looking at potential 9-month suspensions, which is just brutal. So hopefully that doesn't happen. But, I mean, I'm pretty sure they're going to get suspended. We saw Cynthia Calvillo, I think, like 2 years ago, get suspended for marijuana as well. It's stupid. And obviously, you know, people are kind of putting on the fighters now saying, you know, why did you smoke so close to your fight and stuff? And I agree that, you know, they should have been a little smarter with as far as the timeline goes. But at the same time, it's weed. If they show up in the cage high, yeah, it's a little different. But if these guys are smoking, you know, a few days before their fight and just for like a little like relief, I personally don't have a problem with it. It is in the rules. I get they're probably going to be punished for it, but it's still stupid in my opinion. Tim Elliott lost his fight, and he actually lost to Brandon Royval, and Luis Pena lost his fight to Conor Worthy. Jamahal Hill, he did beat Clinton Abreu, so he'd have his win overturned, I believe, to a no contest if he is suspended. So we'll see what happens there. But the other guys, they lost their fights. The other guy that got suspended was Marc-Andre Barriault. And again, these are provisional suspensions. These guys will get their time in court, and they will get to argue their cases. Marc-Andre Barriault tested positive for ostarine, which is a substance that a lot of guys have tested positive for. Yoel Romero, Tim Means, usually from tainted substances, supplements, excuse me. I feel bad for Barriault here because I do believe that he probably wasn't intentionally taking something, but it's not easy to prove. You really need to keep that label in that bottle and show that the commission that, you know, you weren't using this on purpose. It's going to be tough for him, I think, to prove it, but we'll see what happens. I mean, we saw Tim Means and Romero kind of get their suspensions shortened a little bit, but ultimately they did lose time in their careers, and I'm pretty sure Barriault will as well. He's coming off a win over Oscar Pichota. It was a win, could be overturned to a no contest. I hope not, but it could be. I'll get to some comments here from Ken Shiro. I almost called her Valerie. He's talking about Master Valerie. I like Valerie. I just wish she'd own the fact that she's posting pictures so she can gain followers and gain male fans. What's wrong with her saying that? You know, she should have said that, in my opinion. See what he says. Kenshiro Rio Doju. Yair and Ortega will both run of excuses to avoid Zabit eventually. Yeah, we'll see what happens. I think for as far as Yair goes, it's just bad luck. He obviously hurt himself. This fight was supposed to happen. As far as Ortega goes, where is this guy? He hasn't fought in 2 years. Why is he ranked like number 2 in the world? Take him out of the rankings. He doesn't fight anymore. If he wants to fight before the end of the year, keep him in. At this point, Brian Ortega is not even really in the UFC. He hasn't fought in 2 years, guys. Kenshiro, pro fighters should be allowed to smoke all the weed and CBD oils they need. Helps with pain and neural pain from CT and head trauma due to fighting. Yeah, I agree with that as well. I have no problem with fighters smoking weed or anyone smoking weed personally. Again, I live in Canada. It's legal here. We have no problem with it. As far as the news goes, we'll get to UFC 252. They announced the card yesterday. They said it's the finalized card, but I think they're still missing a few fights. Right now, we have 12 fights. So, okay, I guess it's pretty close. Yeah, this is probably it. So right now, the card for UFC 252, again, it could have another fight added. I think that could happen. But right now, it's obviously the main event, Stipe Miocic against DC in the trilogy. I just rewatched the first 2 fights yesterday. Man, so good. So good. Seriously, that first fight, that knockout from the clinch, incredible from DC. The second fight, that adjustment that Stipe made in the 4th round where he started going to the body, those left hooks to the body, devastating knockout. Such a good knockout. Such a great fight. This is my favorite trilogy of all time. I can't wait for this 3rd fight. Co-main event, Sean O'Malley against Marlon Vera. Some people are surprised that this is the co-main event. Why are you surprised? This is the perfect co-main event. I know JDS is a former champ. I know Rosenstruck's a top 10 guy at heavyweight. That's going to be an exciting fight. Someone gets knocked out there for sure. Sean O'Malley's one of the feature stars of the UFC. He's a current star as well. You definitely have to go with the co-main event with Sean O'Malley. This guy and Marlon Vera are going to put on a really good fight for the fans. That's probably my early lean for fight of the night. I can't wait for that fight. I have no problem with that being co-main event. Don't really understand the criticism there. Like I said, JDS, Rosenstruck, John Dodson against Merab Dvalishvili, great fight as well. And then Magomed Ankalaev against Jan Kutalaba in the rematch after that controversial first fight with a horrible stoppage from the ref. 6 months later, they finally meet again. That's a solid main card. I really like this main card. Obviously, everyone's buying this card for the main event, but the rest of the card is solid. As far as the prelims go, you got Jim Miller against Vinc Pichel, and that fight was announced on short notice. Jim Miller, man, I mean, what a stud. And Vinc Pichel, both guys actually have a win over Roosevelt Roberts. So I think that's a perfect matchup right there. Next up, you got Ashley Yoder against Livia Renata Souza. Heavyweight bout Chris Daukaus, Kyle Daukaus' brother, against Parker Porter. And Parker Porter is a guy that he has 2 fights against John Jones and Gabriel Gonzaga from back in the day and got finished. But that's crazy. This guy finally made it to the UFC. Also on that card, we have Felice Harry against Verna Jandaroba, Herbert Burns against Daniel Pineda, TJ Brown against Daniel Chavez, and Isaac Villanueva against Jorge Gonzalez. So overall, the prelims, definitely not the strongest prelims, I don't think, but the main card is solid, guys, and I'm looking forward to UFC 252. I will be previewing that card with Cole Sheldon next Tuesday. I can't wait to talk about that card. It's going to be a lot of fun. A few other news and notes here. Carla Esparza, she wants a title shot against Weili Zhang. I don't know about that. I mean, she might get it, though. The crazy thing is she might get it. And the reason why is because right now the division has a lot of fighters injured and unable to fight. So Weili Zhang, coming off the fight of the year against Joanna Jędrzejczyk back in March, an incredible fight. And right now we got Weili Zhang as the champ. Obviously, number 1 contender is Rose Namajunas, but Rose is currently injured. She might not be able to fight for the rest of the year. So they've basically taken her out of the running for the title shot. Jessica Andrade is moving up to flyweight to take on Jessica Ai. Tatiana Suarez is also hurt. Tatiana would have made a lot of sense. She's hurt. Nina Ansaroff is pregnant. And then you look at the rest of the division. Claudia Gadelha, Michelle Watterson, Marina Rodriguez. None of those fighters are really in it. The only other fight that they could give Zhang is a rematch with Joanna. And by the way, Joanna's ranked number 4 right now. I don't think I agree with that. I think she should be ranked a little higher. Definitely above Suarez. Like, who is Suarez beaten that she should be ranked above Joanna? She beat Carla. That was her big win, right? So I don't agree with that at all. She did beat Ansaroff too, I guess. But Joanna is a former champ. She should be ranked number 2 or 3, in my opinion. Yeah, I mean, we'll see what happens. But you know what? Carla at number 7 actually might sneak in here. And it's crazy, right? Because you look at the division, there's other contenders. But again, they're hurt. They're not able to fight. They're pregnant. They can't fight right now. So Carla's actually on a 4-fight win streak. And some of these wins, I mean, they're pretty, I would say, controversial in some respects. The Watterson fight, I don't know how many people thought she won that one. And the Rodriguez fight as well. I thought she lost both those fights, guys. You know, she definitely has really good wrestling. We all know that. She's a grinder. She's been around forever. I respect Carla Esparza a lot. And the betting odds should respect her more. But Weili Zhang is such a bad matchup for her. Weili Zhang will not be taken down. And on the feet, she's going to just tee off on Carla. We saw what happened when Carla fought Joanna. She was durable for about a round and then got finished in the second. I'd say if they fight, she probably gets finishes even sooner. So, you know, it's no disrespect to Carla Esparza. I think she's actually a really good fighter, underrated. But Weili Zhang is a bad matchup for her. If she really wants this fight, she might get it, but I don't think it goes well for her. And the other guy that had some talk about him recently, Khamzat Chimaev, he wants to fight at UFC 252. I don't think that's happening. They'll probably see him for Fight Island. Dana White talked about him in a recent interview with Aaron Bronstetter and said that they're not committed to giving him a top 15 guy. And actually, it's ironic they talked about this after the fight with Edmund Shabazian where he got smashed by Brunson. So maybe the UFC's like, okay, let's slow a roll on this guy. We all know Khamzat's good. He's awesome. He's going to be a potential future champion in the sport, but there's no point in rushing this guy. Take it slow. Give him. I thought Kevin Holland would have been the perfect opponent. Kevin Holland got another opponent, but you know, if Holland wins this weekend, maybe you could book him against Chimaev on Fight Island. That's the kind of guy Chimaev should fight. A guy who's outside the top 15, but still a very respected guy, like a guy like Kevin Holland. Go to some questions here. Marcus Williams. Good morning, Marcus. Your thoughts on Kevin Lee tearing ACL in the other leg? Yeah, I saw the video. So Kevin Lee was rehabbing for the ACL tear in his one leg, and now he's got it in his other leg too. So just terrible news. He's going to be out for a while. You know, Kevin Lee is a guy that has had some incredible wins in the UFC, you know, quite frankly. Like the win over Barboza was unbelievable. The win over Gillespie was unbelievable. So this guy is talented as hell, man. And we've seen him have other stand performances against guys like Michael Chiesa and Magomed Mustafayev, Francisco Trinaldo, finished all those guys. He's a very talented fighter, but, you know, basically, you know, ripping both his knees apart like this is bad for his career, man. It really is going forward, especially, because he has taken quite a bit of damage in his last couple of fights. The fight with Oliveira, the fight with Dos Anjos, the fight with Iaquinta, the fight with Tony Ferguson. Like, he's a guy that is talented, but he's only 27, but he's taking a lot of damage. He's a guy that's actually, I think, a little bit older in fight years. So, I hope the rehab goes well on this other knee, Marcus, but I think we might have seen possibly the best we've seen of Kevin Lee from the Gregor Gillespie fight. I'm not sure if he can get to that level again, but we'll see what happens. I mean, first off, he's got to actually pick a weight class. It's going to have to be either lightweight or welterweight. He's going to have to decide on one of the two. I'm guessing he sticks to lightweight. And again, he's only lost to really elite guys for the most part. But yeah, I mean, I'm definitely worried about his future after hearing that news. Kenshiro, where's that girl with the silver medalist at strawweight? It's been only 2 years. We forgot her name. Who are you talking about? The only other fighter I can think of is Sarah McMahon. I don't know who you're talking about. If you could think of her, let me know. Fight announcements. I got a few here. Ricky Simone against Brian Kelleher. That's fight happening in September. Thiago Moises against Jalin Turner. Frank Camacho against Brock Weaver. And those ones I mentioned with Daukaus Porter and Miller Pichel. So some good fights. They also made the card in the 22nd official. Main event, Pedro Munoz against Frankie Edgar. Co-main event, Uriah Hall against Yoel Romero. So that should be a good card as well. Let me just see if I got some other news. If anyone wants any questions answered, throw them in there right now. I'll answer them before I get out of here. I saw Jorge Masvidal. I did see this morning. He talked about potentially fighting before the end of the year. So hopefully he says December or November for his next fight. Don't know who Masvidal's going to fight, but there's definitely some good options for him at welterweight. You look at the rankings right now, Jorge Masvidal right now, number 4 in the world. Number 2, Colby Covington. That would be a good fight. Number 3, Leon Edwards. That's a fun fight. Even number 5, Woodley, I think, is a pretty good fight. Number 6, Thompson. You could do a rematch there. Any of those guys, but if I had to guess, it's going to be either Covington or Edwards for his next fight. So we'll see what happens there. But Masvidal, he obviously lost to Usman and wasn't that close of a fight, but he did take a short notice. And if you can get maybe 1, 2, or 3 more wins against some pretty high level guys, he could jump right back in there for another title shot, maybe next year or the year after. But yeah, I mean, he had his chance and he didn't look the greatest in that fight. But again, took him a short notice. Made a lot of money though, so I don't think he's really regretting his decision to take that fight. Stipe Miocic spoke about John Jones. He does think he'll fight him eventually. Also, Dana White said that the winner of this fight will be the greatest heavyweight of all time. If Stipe wins 100%, it's hard to argue against that. DC, though, I mean, his resume at heavyweight is not amazing, but if he does beat Stipe twice in Stipe's prime, it's hard to argue that as well. So I saw some people kind of saying that, this is just Dana selling the fight. But my question would be, who else would you put up there? Some people would say Cain Velasquez. I wouldn't. I mean, Cain didn't really have a great run. He had a couple of nice wins, but barely fought for a while. Randy Couture is a guy that's had obviously a couple runs and as a legend, but he had a lot of losses too. So it's kind of hard to say. I think the winner, DC and Stipe, I think definitely I would put as the number 1 guy at heavyweight. And there are other fighters that could be in that mix. I still feel like Fedor should be in the mix. He never fought in the UFC though. But yeah, I think that Dana is right about that. Anyways, let's see here. I don't know who Kenshiro who you're talking about, man. I see you in the comments. I'm not really sure who you're talking about. And you asked if I joined Claudia's OnlyFans site. I didn't know she had one. Good for her though. I hope it goes well. I have no problem with these women making OnlyFans sites, man. If I could make an OnlyFans and make money off selling pictures of me, I would do it. But yeah, you got what's her name, Cindy Danbois. I know Marcus. She sent me that story last month, and Cindy had the issue with her gym. I think her gym closed down. She started an OnlyFans, and people like her. So why not? I have no problem with that. Obviously, we had some other fighters like Beck Rawlings do it as well, and Jessica Rose Clark, I think, has one as well. No problem with it, man. If you can make some money, it's a grind out there, man. It's a grind in the world. So if you can go out there and make some money, selling pictures and videos of yourself, I mean, why not? Obviously, people are going to say, why don't they just get into adult films? But these women, they still want to fight. So I have no problem with that, man. People want to do what they want for some extra money, some supplemental income, and people are going to pay for it. No problem at all. All right, any other questions, guys? Throw them in there right now. But I think it's pretty much it. Just checking, see if I missed anything. I should mention the odds for Holland and Buckley are up. Holland minus 360, or excuse me, actually, you opened a little bit less. minus 275 and Buckley plus 235. Right now, Kevin Holland minus 500, Buckley plus 315. And when that fight was announced, Cole messaged me. He's like, I think Holland's going to be minus 500. Looks like you're right, Cole. So, yeah, Holland should win that fight. But those odds are a little bit high, I think. I mean, Buckley just fought last week. He could definitely have a little bit more in the tank for this fight. So, it should be a good one. And that's it as far as odds go. Yeah, I'm just reading Kenshiro's comments. You're hilarious this morning, man. Anyways, that's going to be it for today's show, guys. I appreciate you tuning in on Thursday morning. I'm not sure if I'm going to do it on Thursday or Friday going forward. I might stick to Thursday just because Bellators are on Friday now, and I'd like to give a day, for people to listen to the show. So we'll see what happens. I might start doing it Thursday, but either way, as far as next week goes, Tuesday for sure for the podcast with myself and Cole breaking down UFC 252. So definitely Tuesday 10 a.m. For sure, check that out. I'm going on a trip next week from like Wednesday to Sunday, so I'll probably do a podcast from where I am. I don't know what day though. It's going to be either Thursday or Friday, so we'll see what happens then. But definitely check out Tuesday. That's for sure going on at 10 a.m. You guys can follow me on Twitter at MMAOB. And as far as my articles and stuff go, MMAOddsbreaker.com, all my opening odds articles, my breakdown for the main event of this weekend's card. BJPen.com, all the latest news in MMA, and of course, MMARings.net, where I have the occasional column. So definitely check that out. Hope you guys are having a great week, and I'll be back on Tuesday to recap this weekend's card and preview UFC 252. Have an amazing weekend, everyone, and I'll talk to you guys soon. Bye.